tail in the face. Oh, now I've got a bum in the face. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm in my new office filming this video, which is very exciting. I'm also very happy about the lighting. It's very nice and bright here. The window is kind of more or less just to the right and behind the camera, so that's nice. I am back again with another What I Read video, and this one is what I read in September, which I'm aware is coming very late. And I do just want to preface this video by letting you all know that I haven't read any books throughout October. It's been a really busy month for me, and I haven't been able to read anything other than my book club book, which is the Layla Saad Me and White Supremacy book. I have been carrying on reading this. I'm still working through it with my book club, and I'm going to talk about this a little bit more in the context of what I read this month. But other than that, I haven't read any books in October. So I just want to let you know now that there won't be a What I Read in October video because I didn't read anything. But I'm going to start again on the beginning of November, on the 1st of November, with reading. And then at the end of November you'll get a What I Read in November video. So with no further ado, I'm going to get straight into this because, as you may know, I've said this many a time, my camera overheats after 15 minutes of talking, and I have no desire to sit here for 2 hours waiting for it to cool down before I can film the rest of it. So let's get into it. So the first book I read in way back when, at the beginning of September, was The Tattooist of Auschwitz. Now, I have seen this book doing the rounds for months. Every time it comes up on the Facebook, kind of on a Facebook page saying it's for sale, it always sells really quickly. I know that one of my best friends, Becca, had read it recently. So it was one that I was really intrigued to read. I did a course at university, my 3rd year at university, in Holocaust literature, and it was one of the most transformative educational courses I've ever done. And so I've read a lot of Holocaust literature, both kind of first-person non-fiction narratives, kind of stories of individuals' personal experiences during the Holocaust, and things like this, which is... it's not fiction, but it's not non-fiction either. So basically the author, Heather Morris, met Lael, who is the main person, the main character in this book, and Lael told Heather his story, and then she wrote it up into this. So it's kind of like a blend of fiction and non-fiction. So I've read a lot of these, which is almost like second-person narratives. And then I've also read things that are complete works of fiction, and I'm going to talk about those in and amongst this book. So yeah, I've read a lot, and if you're interested in knowing my favourite and my kind of most, what's the right word? I feel like saying my favourite Holocaust books is a bit uncomfortable. I can tell you which are the ones that have affected me the most, which ones have stayed with me the most, and which I think are the most important in Holocaust narratives. So if you're interested in a video just on that, then do let me know, and I'd be more than happy to film something like that. So this is The Tattooist of Auschwitz. If I'm looking down, it's because I have notes on my phone, and I take notes as, you can't see anyway, I take notes as I'm reading them so that I can remember kind of how I felt and what I thought at the time throughout the book. So kind of generally, overall, I thought that this was a quick read. If you are someone who kind of flies through novels quite quickly, then I think you would get through this quite quickly. I think I read it in about 2 or 3 days. The language is very accessible, and it's got kind of a novel type pace to it. Yeah, it's kind of an easy read. I'm going to say this, and I really don't want it to come across as rude, but I didn't realise it was a true story at first. So I actually thought it was not a very good fiction book. And there were bits in it that I was like, that's not believable, that's not believable, surely that didn't happen really. And then after about 2 or 3 chapters I thought, I'm going to have to look into this because it was making me feel uncomfortable, because I thought, is this something that someone has made up, or is it proper, like actual factual events that have happened? And so I looked it up and I realised it was a true story, and that just blew my mind. So what I'm talking about is things like the main character is called Lael, and his ability to kind of get himself out of trouble on a regular basis in Auschwitz, the things that he gets up to. And I don't want to say too much because, as ever, I want you to go and read the book. But he gets himself into these situations every now and again where you think, oh shit, that's it. That they're going to kill him, or he's going to get taken away, or this, that and the other. And he always kind of manages to get out of that situation. He's obviously a very, very clever gentleman who had a real survival instinct throughout his experiences in Auschwitz. And I thought at first, I was like, is this really what happened? But like I say, it is. And I think that's one of the things that really struck me, because I suppose the popular narratives that are troped time and time again in fiction and in films that are made about the Holocaust is that Auschwitz was this type of place where there was nobody who was kind. There was nobody who would help out or get involved and risk this, that and the other. And actually there's stories throughout this book where Lael makes, I won't say friends, but he makes connections with SS guards who will help him out in exchange for him helping them out for something, you know what I mean? And it gave a completely new perspective to the experience of Auschwitz. It's still incredibly harrowing, and there's things that happened. For example, I didn't realise that the gypsy camps, and I know that's not a PC term nowadays, but it is used in the book, the gypsy camp where all the kind of travellers were kept, was liquidated. This is within Auschwitz, I think towards the end of the war, towards the end of the kind of time of the camp, and Lael was living within that kind of area of the camp at the time, and he'd made really good friends with the traveller community. And yeah, he was horrified then when it was liquidated, and men, women, children, the whole kind of gypsy camp was completely emptied, and they were all sent to the chambers. And I didn't realise that. I didn't know that was something that happened at Auschwitz. So I found that very interesting and kind of looked into that a little bit more. As a result of reading the book, I actually went away and watched quite a few documentaries about Auschwitz, just so that I could really kind of get a better understanding of the camp. Obviously it is the most famous Holocaust camp, is Auschwitz. Everybody kind of knows it. But I wanted to make sure that I knew as much as possible really about it. Now, another thing I wanted to kind of say about it is that I do think that it's a bit short, and I feel like Lael's incredible story of survival through Auschwitz is kind of rendered down into 250 pages. It's kind of skipped over. Like he's one of the first people to arrive at Auschwitz. He's in one of the first groups to arrive at Auschwitz. In fact, when he arrives, the second camp isn't even built, or it's starting to be built. So he's in Camp 1. So that kind of popular vision of Auschwitz as this huge sprawling camp with the crematorium and the railway lines and the gates and all that kind of stuff didn't necessarily look like that when he first came. So he was at Auschwitz. He was at Auschwitz for a really long time, and I do kind of think this should have been, I feel like this could have been 2 or 3 times as long. As you can see, it's quite if I hold it up next to another book, it's quite a short, small book. Like I say, it's only 250 pages. And I would have liked it to be a lot longer and go into more detail and tell us more about his kind of day-to-day life. It kind of does, but I feel like it goes from big event to big event to big event to big event. And for me, it would have been better to kind of have those spread out a bit more. Because the book is called The Tattooist of Auschwitz, and I haven't even mentioned that yet. He is the tattooist. Tattooist? Anyway, he's the chap who puts the tattoos on people's arms when they arrive at Auschwitz. And he does that for a number of years. And that kind of is really, really poignant, and it's really harrowing when he talks about the impact that has on him and the age of some of the children that he tattoos and that kind of thing. And I think that's the kind of bit that kind of gets you in the gut, because no other kind of books or films or anything like that, not even any documentaries that I've seen up to now, talk about the tattooists, don't talk about that process. And so that was really kind of quite, like I say, it kind of kicked me in the gut a bit about that. But I did read at the end of the book that Heather Morris took 3 years to gather Lael's story together, and she saw him 2 to 3 times a week for 3 years. And so all of that information that she got from him, I would have liked this to be longer. Maybe she would write a non-fiction account of Lael's life at some point in the future, where it is like thicker and more kind of in detail. Because this is what I would call a testimony book. It's his story of what happened. And so I think maybe it's because I've read a lot of Holocaust literature. I would have liked it to have been less novel-like and more testimonial, I think, is what I'm kind of saying. One of the things that I did really love about the book as well is that at the back there is quite a lot of pages of kind of photographs and plans of Auschwitz and lists of people, and there's also kind of 10 pages or so of kind of a paper written by Heather Morris talking about the process of putting this book together and researching it, and her kind of trips that she did. So yeah, I actually really enjoyed that bit at the end. I really enjoyed learning a bit more about how Heather had gone about creating this book and writing this book, and how she gathered the testimony and all that kind of stuff. So like I say, I think with this, as a standalone kind of novel or novella or kind of blend of fiction and non-fiction, I'm not very keen on it. But as an interested historian, I'm really fascinated to kind of know more about Lael's kind of like full history at Auschwitz, and I'm also really interested in Heather Morris's work as well. So yeah, I think what I'm saying is that I liked the story of Lael. I liked Lael's story. Not overly keen on it as a book, fictiony, non-fiction book, but I really like the story and I want to know more. I want to find out more. So yeah, I'm going to be looking into Lael Sokolov a little bit more, and yeah, seeing what else Heather Morris puts out there. I think out of 5 stars, I'd probably give it a 3. I still think it's an incredibly important read, and I think that everybody should read it. Yeah, probably not my favourite or one of my kind of highly recommended Holocaust reads. I hope that's okay. I feel really uncomfortable talking about books that I don't like on here, but I have to be honest about it. So I wouldn't say I didn't like it, but I can't rave about it like I know that a lot of people are doing. So yeah, don't hate me, that's my review. So the next one has got a bit of a weird backstory to it. So I remember starting to read this maybe 2 years ago, and I think I only got like 1 chapter in, and for whatever reason didn't finish reading it. But it stuck with me, and I remember I was thinking about what book I wanted to read next after the Tattooist of Auschwitz. I wanted something completely different, again, something that was completely new. And I was thinking, I've read this book, and it's something to do with a guy who goes to a country house, and the person who lived there before him was hung. And that's all I could remember. I was like, I'm sure this is a novel that I've started reading somewhere. So, as I mentioned before, I'm on a lot of book selling Facebook groups. And so I put something on there saying, look, I know this is a bit strange, but if you can help me out, this would be great. And I basically just described that little bit of what I could remember and said, if anybody knows what this book is, can you tell me the name and the author? Because I'd really like to read it. And basically it was this. So it's a Peter Robinson book, and it's called Before the Poison. As soon as somebody said it, I was like, yeah, I've seen that book, I've got that on my bookshelf. And I knew that I had it, so I started looking for it, realised I'd sent it to the charity shop about 3 weeks earlier. So I was gutted, because by that point I really wanted to read this book. I'd read the synopsis online, I'd remembered this bit about it that I'd read before. I was like, right, I really want to read this as my next book. But I'd sent it to the charity shop. So I bought another copy off Facebook, secondhand. And yeah, basically, I'll read you the little bit on the back. It says, after years of Hollywood success, composer Chris Lowndes wants only one thing, to take his beloved wife home to the Yorkshire Dales. But Laura is gone and Chris is on his own. He welcomes the isolation of Kilnsgate House and the beauty of the Dale, and it doesn't surprise him that a man died there 60 years ago, that his wife was convicted of murder, that something is pulling him deeper and deeper into the story of Grace Elizabeth Fox, who was hanged by the neck until she was dead. So it's basically a bit of a murder mystery. Chris, who is the widower who comes to the house, the abandoned mansion house, he finds out that there was a murder that happened in the house 60 years ago, and he basically sets out to find out what happened, whether the wife was guilty. The wife was hung, and so it goes into the kind of history of hangings in the UK and when the last hanging happened and this, that and the other. But if you're interested in the history of that kind of death penalty stuff, then there's a little bit about that in here as well. So yeah, it's not really a story I'd ever come across before. Really interesting, very different, and I like that from a kind of general fiction novel. And this was just something that I was just reading just to kind of reset my brain. Do you ever have books like that? Like some books you choose to read and really deeply, I mean, I got into this pretty deeply as well, as I do with all books, but some are like really intense, and then some you kind of have as a reset, like a really easy read, get you back to where you were, and then you can go into another deep one again. That's kind of what this was. This was kind of like my reset book. So I've made a few notes again, so if I'm looking down I'm reading my notes. Kind of apart quite, is it early on? Yeah, kind of within the first 100 pages, where kind of the tone has been set. He's in this kind of, I won't call it a country house, it's not like a big stately home, it's kind of more of a, you know, those kind of detached Victorian houses. If you're not in the UK, you might not know what I'm describing. I suppose in the US it'd be kind of like, you know, those farmhouses that have like the wraparound porch, kind of that size. But in the UK, a lot of them were built in the Victorian period, and they're usually kind of stone, brick built, kind of, I suppose, maybe mill owners' homes, that type of thing. So he's living in one of these in the Yorkshires. It's very kind of remote, and it needs a lot of work doing to it. And he's explaining why he wants to do the research into the kind of history of the family who lived there beforehand and this kind of murder that had happened. And he's explaining it all. And let me just find the page that I've referenced. So he says, I'm not going mad and I'm not getting obsessed. I've moved into a big old house in the country where a murder was committed nearly 60 years ago. I'm taking a break from work, from deadlines. I've got time on my hands, enough money to live on, to do what I want. I'm interested, that's all. Nothing's ever as straightforward as it seems. Hindsight can sometimes give you an advantage. And I've written a note to myself saying, this is definitely the type of thing I would do. Which it is, and I think that's one of the reasons why I liked it so much, was that I could imagine myself doing this. Obviously, you know that we've renovated this house that we're living in at the moment, and I can imagine, like, one of my kind of dreams of a life is in the future is to kind of get something like this, a really big old kind of Victorian house that's a bit ruined, and to renovate it up in the country and live in the country and have grow our own produce and maybe have a few animals, and that's something that I'd really love to do in the future. And so when I was reading this and reading like what he was saying, I was like, yep, that's me. I'd definitely do that. Want to know all about like kind of the gory details of who's lived in the house before. Oh yeah, there was quite a funny moment. So on page 130, there was a bit where, this is a quote from the book, it said, landlady of a pub in Barnard Castle said she'd overheard us talking about getting rid of somebody. And I thought this was a little bit unbelievable because everyone knows Barnard Castle's where you go to have your eyes tested, not to get rid of a body. But yeah, I thought it was quite a funny moment. Opportunity for me to put a joke in. I don't make many jokes very often because I'm not very funny, but I like to make a joke if I can. Hello, what are you doing? Oh, got a tail in the face. Oh, now I've got a bum in the face. Come on, you can't stay up here. Oh, say bye-bye to the film. Bye-bye. Oh, there you go. He has a chair, literally, like a metre away from me here, with a blanket on it and everything for him to cosy up in, so it looks like he might jump in there now. Another good thing about this book is that I find, for me personally, I like books that have little moments of real historical kind of events or people or this, that and the other. And one of the things that was noted in this book, and I'm looking at my phone so I can get it right. So yeah, one of the characters in the book that kind of come up later, they were in Singapore in the Second World War, which is quite interesting because in British schools, you only really learn about France and Germany during the Second World War. You don't really learn about the world, the rest of the kind of world and their impact on the war. I didn't really know anything about Singapore in the Second World War, and one of the characters goes to somewhere called the Alexandra Hospital, and there's a massacre that happens there, and I ended up reading up on it and finding out a lot more, and it was horrific, like what happened in that area during the war. But yeah, so little things like that, I like learning new things, and I like it when it's kind of tied into a book so that it's not something that I'm reading an entire book on, but it's a little snippet that then opens up kind of my interest. So like with the last video that I did with the noetic science in the Dan Brown book, it's kind of the same thing, so I enjoy learning little bits and pieces from it. Yeah, I've never read any Peter Robinson. I know he's one of those writers that is prolific, that has written quite a lot of books. I don't think I've read any of these others. I wouldn't say that I'll necessarily read every single Peter Robinson book from now on, but if the kind of synopsis on the back takes my interest, then I may read some of his in the future. I do kind of like any kind of like little murder mystery books like this that are set at country houses, stately homes, abandoned mansions. Obviously that's where my history, my kind of interest lies, in that area of history. So yeah, if he's written any of them, then I might read those. Yeah, so that's that. I'm going to give that 3.5 out of 5. It's kind of difficult, isn't it? Because some of the books I think are kind of more literary than others. And so 3.5 on a scale for kind of an easy read kind of fiction book is kind of different to, say, the 3 stars that I've just given Tattooist of Auschwitz. So it's a bit difficult because I don't want to say that this is better than the Tattooist of Auschwitz because it's kind of completely different. But on the kind of general fiction, easy reading, I would give this 3 out of 5. I think it's very good. It's a good storyline. If you like country houses and ghost stories and all that kind of thing, you'll love this. So yeah, go read it if you fancy it. Okay, and so the third book I read this month, not this month, sorry, in September, is Kate Morton, the Clockmaker's Daughter. Now, I absolutely love Kate Morton's books. I think I've read every single one that she's written so far. I don't think she's got many out. I think she's kind of like maybe 5 or 6, something like that. She's the type of writer who will release one book every kind of 2 or 3 years, and it is beautifully written. I absolutely love them. She generally, as well, always writes about country houses, of which this one is also set at a country house, or concerns a country house, I should say. So, of course, that just appeals to me straight away. I think the first one I read of hers was The House at Riverton. That was the first one I read. So she's done 5, so this is the 6th one. I'm not sure when it was published. 2018. So she may even have another one out by now, but this is the 6th one as it stood when this was published in 2018. So yeah, I think I've read all of them, although I'm now looking at the title The Forgotten Garden and thinking I may not have read that one. Might have to look into that. But yeah, so this is The Clockmaker's Daughter, and I'll read you the back again. So, in the depths of a 19th century winter, a little girl is abandoned in the narrow streets of London. Adopted by a mysterious stranger, she becomes in turn a thief, a friend, a muse and a lover. Then, in the summer of 1862, shortly after her 18th birthday, she retreats with a group of artists to a beautiful house on a quiet bend of the Upper Thames. Tensions simmer, and one hot afternoon, a gunshot rings out. A woman is killed, another disappears, and the truth of what happened slips through the cracks of time. Over the next century and beyond, Birchwood Manor welcomes many newcomers, but guards its secret closely, until another young woman is drawn to visit the house because of a family secret of her own. That's not all of the back, I've just read you a little bit of that. So yeah, it's kind of concerned with this place called Birchwood Manor, and the main character is called, is it Elodie? Yes, Elodie, sorry. So the main character, although there are kind of quite a few main characters, again, Kate Morton's the type of person who, she kind of writes her books with 2 or 3 kind of main characters, and they're kind of all interwoven with each other. But the kind of main character is called Elodie, and she lives in modern day London. She's an archivist and a historian, which is just, oh, I love books written about archivists. Historians and history just really gets my geek buzzer going. So yeah, she's an archivist, and she kind of lives in this cosy flat above a takeaway or a fish and chip shop or something like that. And yeah, it's all very kind of romantic London city life in modern times. I know that that's not what it's like living in London. I have many a friend who lives in London. It's a lot harder than that. But it's nice for the story, and it's kind of almost that, oh, I wish I could fall into that kind of lifestyle sometimes. So yeah, she's an archivist. She comes across all these little bits and pieces in her archive that she works at that kind of hint at something that's going on, and she starts to unravel that kind of story and look into it and discover what happens. Alongside that, it kind of shifts back in time as well, to various times throughout Birchwood Manor's history, and it tells you the stories of people who've lived there. There's a really good bit, and I don't kind of want to tell you how it ends, but when you first start reading it, there's one character who is a ghost, and it's really interesting kind of reading that person's perspective as a non-living character, and I thought that was really beautifully done as well. Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those books, is The Clockmaker's Daughter. It's really, really beautifully written. Each scene and each time frame is really beautifully kind of described. I think not necessarily with all of Kate Morton's books, but with this one, I imagine that if this was made into like a film or a TV series, I imagine that this would be kind of a bit steampunky in style. So I don't know if steampunk is a kind of description that's used all over the world, but in the UK we kind of use that to describe kind of TV shows that are a bit like Victorian industrial style. A really good example of a recent show that's been done in the kind of steampunk style is Carnival Row with Cara Delevingne and Orlando Bloom. That was a really good example of that kind of steampunky type vibe. So I hope you kind of get what I mean with that. So yeah, the kind of modern scenes where Elodie is in it is kind of in that steampunky vibe. And then when you come out to the countryside, it's like a complete flip. It's like a complete 180. And you get these kind of beautiful descriptions of the landscape and the bend of the river. And it almost kind of reminded me a bit of a Wind in the Willows type description. It was really timeless. It had like that timeless landscape beauty to it. I think that's one of the things that I do really love about Morton's books, is that she creates so much description of place, but it's not overly descriptive. It's really hard to describe what makes her books so magical for me, but I think it honestly is a combination of the kind of the setting. It's always at a country house. There's usually something that's a little bit strange or spooky or this, that and the other that's going on. Sometimes it's like tracing a family member. Usually it's got some kind of family history kind of stuff in it. And I think that's kind of a narrative that I really enjoy. I do like that quite a lot. And yeah, in terms of the actual storyline, I feel like it's kind of, there were a couple of little bits and pieces that I did predict correctly, but there's also quite a lot of stuff that I didn't predict correctly either. I think there's a really good kind of blend of kind of those surprising moments, but also just beautiful kind of narrative style. Yeah, I don't really know what to say about this too much. It's weird because some books I can wax lyrical about for ages, and actually in this kind of review video, I suppose I've been kind of talked more about the negatives rather than the positives. But I just think it's a really beautiful story. I think it's quite unique. I haven't really come across many other narratives that have this kind of style to it. I think it's a really unique story, especially the bit with telling the perspective from the ghost. I think that is just absolutely fantastic and really well done. And yeah, I mean, it's got 2 reviews on the back, which says an immersive, beautifully told story, and the other review says it's captivating. And I completely 100% agree with both of those reviews. I think that is exactly what this book is. I think it's a really beautiful book for you to escape into at the moment. If you're kind of struggling a little bit with just general life, which who's not really, this is really a beautiful kind of book for escaping into. I definitely have done that over the last couple of weeks. I feel like lockdown, the first lot of lockdown at the beginning of this year, I kind of took it in my stride. I was like, oh, it's okay, I can cope with this, it's fine. And I actually quite enjoyed being at home for a lot of it. And then for some reason, September and October's kind of restrictions and stuff have hit me quite a lot, mental health wise. And so having something like this to escape into has been really, really handy for me. So I highly recommend it if you're looking for something just to kind of take your mind off things. Kate Morton's definitely one of those writers that I will reread time and time again. She's a bit like CJ Sansom. In fact, I would say that she's probably one of my favourite authors. Honestly, I just think the way she writes is absolutely fantastic. I want to be Kate Morton. I want to be here. I want to write books like this that have country houses in them and a little bit of ghosts and tell me your secrets. Kate, please tell me your secrets, because yeah, I want to write books like this. So yeah, in terms of a rating for this one, I'm going to give it 5 out of 5. There's absolutely nothing I would fault in this book, nothing I would change. I just think it's absolutely superb. So the last books I want to talk to you about, and just mention really, I'm not going to do a review of them, but the last kind of books I wanted to mention are these 2. So as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I am working through my Me and White Supremacy book by Layla Saad. I am in a book club for this, a discussion group, where we discuss it once a week, kind of once a fortnight, something like that, and we go through the chapters together. So that's why it's taken me so long to get through this, because I'm actually diving really deep into the topics. And then alongside that, I've also started White Fragility by DiAngelo, and I've just started this for myself. It's not part of the book club, but I actually do think that these 2 go really well together. I think that genuinely they're 2 slightly different perspectives. Layla Saad is a woman of colour and DiAngelo is a white woman, but they are talking about the same topic, they're saying the same things, but they're written in slightly different ways. So it's interesting to read both, I suppose, perspectives on this topic. So yeah, I'm not in a position where I can talk about them now because I haven't finished reading them, rather than just dropping them into the end of a review, because I don't really think that does the topic justice, but when I have, I will plan that video out. And finally, camera's overheating again, so we need to make this quick. Finally, I do want to just say again, shameless plug, that my book, Unmarried Women of the Country Estate, is now out to purchase. I'm not very good at doing self-promotion, so it makes me feel a bit awkward. I always worry that people are going to be a bit fed up of me talking about my own books, or I'm going to come across as showing off or something like that. But yeah, I have to do it because it's the way that this book gets out there, is for me to tell you to buy it. So if you're interested in purchasing a signed copy, all the details are in the description box of how you can go about doing that. Normal copies you can get online. And also, just to say, I do have copies of book 1 as well. So if you want to buy both together, I can maybe do a little discount, something like that. But yes, that's it. End of the promotion. I'm sorry, I'm not very good at doing this really. I need to get better. It's one of the things I am working on, is promoting the work that I do so that I can continue to do it in the future. Right, so that's the end of this video. I really hope that you've enjoyed what I read in September. As of the 1st of November, I will be starting again with my reading, and there will be, at the end of November, beginning of December, something like that, there'll be a What I Read in November video coming for you. In the meantime, there is Nanowrimo stuff coming up. I'm going to film a video in the next couple of weeks about Nanowrimo, and yeah, I think that's about it. Yeah, going to be doing lots of writing and stuff over the month of November, and then December we're into Christmas. I'm hoping I could do some Vlogmas videos, which is very exciting. But yeah, that's where we are. So I really hope you've enjoyed this video. put down in the comments if you've read any of these books, what you thought of them. Please be kind to me and to everybody else, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!